Good evening, Dolphins fans. Welcome to another episode of On the Fin Side with Kat and Paul. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, all of our social media outlets, as well as the Fansided Network and FinFanatic.com. I'm Brian Cat NFL on Twitter. Paul is fanatic_pick. We are looking at the Dolphins 53-man roster. We had our roster locks this past week, but now we're actually having a dueling 53-man roster discussion going on here today. And I see a lot of 53-man roster projections for the Dolphins as OTAs start for the Dolphins. So I'm sure a lot of the people listening here tonight, and thank you for joining us here in our chat, have that same opinion. So, Paul, before we get to that, though, OTAs did kick off this week. And really the big news, aside from Tua, was Conor Williams, who has played, he played at left tackle at the University of Texas, went to the Cowboys, played at left guard, did a serviceable job. Yes, had a lot of penalties last year, but was overall a really good player. And now it looks like he's going to be the starting center for the Dolphins this year. What was your initial reaction to that?
I think he's going to be in the battle for the starting center. I think he still may end up at left guard. I think it's very much a situation of he and Dieter are going to fight it out because right now Dieter has no one to fight it out with on the roster. And it sounds like JC Tretter is still sticking to his guns that he wants a fully guaranteed contract to set the standard for all the other people out there because NFL players should have fully guaranteed contracts. And that's, if you want more on that, just go to JC Tretter's Twitter account. He's got the link to the story he wrote about it and the big thing about it and all that other stuff, which is utterly ridiculous for a center to take a stand on getting guaranteed money for like 5 years.
See, I think JC Tretter's smart. I think he's saying that, look, I just don't like training camp. So I'm just going to come in here in the last couple of weeks. I'm going to get $8 or $9 million a year from a team. And I don't have to do all those sprints throughout the.
I think he's the head of a
summer.
players union that's trying to take a stand and get something to leave his mark, and it's going to blow up in his face.
Possibly. I don't see JC Tretter being a part of the Dolphins. But as far as Conor Williams is concerned, I think this is legitimate. And all reports indicate that it is legitimate, that he's going to be looking at the center spot. And it makes a lot of sense because, well, I'll take a step back. Initially, I thought the best road to get the Dolphins starting five out on the field was Conor Williams at left guard and Michael Dieter at center. But if the difference with Mike McDaniel is that given the success that he had with the interior offensive line in San Francisco, with Mike Person, with Dan Brunskill, with Brandon Fusco, with a bunch of these nobodies, is that he has earned the right to say, okay, I'm qualified to get the right person in the right spot on this offensive line. So if Brian Flores made a move like this last year, then I'd be thinking, okay, I'm not quite sure this guy knows what he's doing because they have always failed with the offensive line. But McDaniel hasn't, and that's the difference.
Well, I mean, whichever offensive lineman managed to walk in a straight line down the hallway, single file, probably got the starting nod under the Flores era, judging by Albert Wilson.
Yeah, Albert Wilson did say that. There was a single file line.
What a weird, like, that might just be the weirdest thing I've ever heard a player say a coach made them do as far as an NFL coach.
Then again, he also defended Adam Gase. So
the line coach.
I'm not sure I could trust Albert Wilson's judgment on anything. And he also actually signed with the Minnesota Vikings here. So good for him. You know, he's made a really good career for himself here. I'd argue he's never been a really good player, but good luck to him. And then also there is the conversation about Tua Tagovailoa. And out of all of the podcasts on the internet, we probably talk about Tua the least because everything else has been said already, and it's going to be proven in the next 7 or 8 months. But, you know, there are reports coming out of camp that he completed a lot of very impressive deep balls here in OTAs. But what I like the most, Paul, is that he came with an attitude. He came with a bite. And typically I don't really care about that, but what do you have to lose? And as I tweeted out earlier here this week, if Tua sucks this year or sucks the next 2 years, he's gone, whether he talks crap or not. So you might as well bring that attitude. And then on the other hand, if he doesn't talk crap and he's classy and he gives the proverbial line to the media and he sucks, he's out anyway. So you might as well go down swinging and go down with an attitude.
Well, the nice thing for me is it really felt like Tua coming out with that attitude kind of felt like the Dolphins are starting to take that it's us against the world mentality. And it puts him square in the crosshairs as the ringleader of us, as far as us against the world. No, there's a lot of stuff that I really like that I'm seeing from players, hearing from players. Xavier Howard coming out full and wholeheartedly throwing his support behind Josh Boyer. Yeah, there's a lot of different little things to unpack, and most of them are in the media sessions. I mean, yeah, Tua threw some bombs. He underthrew one ball, whatever. He had one bad day and he rebounded. Depending on which reporter you look at, depends on how good he was that day, or whether it was a 55-yard completion to the 5 and then a touchdown, or a 61-yard touchdown. Like, there's a whole lot of goofy stuff you'll get from some of the reporters, but in all honesty, he looked good this week, and so did the other two quarterbacks.
One guy who didn't think Tua looked good was former special teams coordinator Mike Westhoff. And I'll tell you what, this guy has been a stumbling old granny around the Dolphins organization, talking crap about everybody for the last 25 years. Ever since he was
I don't care
fired
what
by
our
Dave
special teams
Wanstead.
ex-girlfriend had to say.
Yeah, I mean, ever since he was fired by Dave Wanstead for John Armstrong, which was actually an upgrade, this guy has been just he is like your Aunt Dora being invited to Thanksgiving dinner and complaining about the tea the entire time. That's who he is. Has this guy done anything in the last 25 years? Why was he even allowed in the building? And then why is he going on podcasts, went on a dolphinstalk.com and was saying that this was not an NFL caliber offense? This is a special teams guy who was fired 25 years ago. He's a loser.
This is why I listen to so few of our one of the reasons why I listen to so few podcasts. Why would you have Mike Westhoff on at this point? Like, and let alone to listen to that's just hunting for clicks. I mean, good Lord. Like, I've seen all kinds of weird nonsense, from stuff about whether or not the front office owes the fans an apology. They don't. Like, look at the product they put out there right now. Like, every step along the way has led us to this point.
Yes, it has.
A single different step, and we wouldn't be where we are today, which is sitting pretty, looking good. And Jesus, you look at our draft capital for next year too, on top of what we've got right now. Oh.
And that's the point. You hit the nail on the head there, is that if you're Tua, why don't you go out there and talk crap and try to back it up? Because if not, and you fail this year, you're going to be replaced. And the Dolphins, and you look at them in their front office. Hey, we've got 5 picks in the first 3 rounds next year. We're able to replace the quarterback if it comes to that. But if Tua goes out there and he takes that next step up, and he's never been surrounded by more talent than he is now, now you can take those picks and further surround Tua with more talent. So it's a win-win as far as I'm concerned.
Speaking of talent, should we dive into our 53 man?
Yes, we should. Let's get into it. So let's start at the quarterback position. I have Tua getting cut. No, I'm just kidding. So I've got Tua and Teddy Bridgewater make the team, and then the third quarterback, I went back and forth between Skylar Thompson off the roster and on the roster. And when I made this 53-man roster prediction, it was between him and John Jenkins. And I ended up putting Skylar Thompson on the team as the third quarterback, even though most teams in the NFL only carry two. But the Dolphins drafted him, and I'm rooting for him to be an even better version of Reed Sinnett from last year and making the team, and then potentially being the Dolphins' backup quarterback here next year and into the foreseeable future. So I'm rooting for Skylar Thompson.
I thought I was gonna have to fight you on this. I really did. I was prepared to when I made my list, but I think Skylar Thompson is going to show up well enough that the Dolphins have to protect him. There are teams out there in dire needs of a starting quarterback, let alone a backup quarterback. And if Skylar goes to the practice squad after the preseason, I think he's going to have. I don't think he ends up being with Miami anymore. And they used one of 4 draft picks to bring him into the building, and he's proven him right against air in the underwear Olympics so far. And so I think he's going to earn that third quarterback spot. And yeah, no, I'm with you on that.
How about running back? I mean, Chase Edmonds and Alec Ingold we had as the locks at the running back spot in our segment last week. Who did you end up having at running back and fullback making the team?
I mean, I kept one fullback, and that's Ingold, like no brainer. At running back, you're gonna yell at me because I went a little cheesy, and I'll change it if you want me to. I think Mostert's gonna end up starting the year on PUP. We've seen a lot of injuries from him in the past, and B, Miami likes to stash a few guys on PUP that they can get away with it with, and Mostert's a prime candidate. So with that being the case, I kept Chase Edmonds, obviously. I kept Myles Gaskin. I kept Sony Michel. And my guy, I think, is going to take over the starting role for 2023, Zaquandre White.
Okay. No, that's totally fine because, I mean, Mostert, if he's either he goes on PUP or probably gets cut.
Yep.
Even though he gets, guaranteed. He's guaranteed $1 million, but yeah, I mean, I went back and forth on Mostert a little bit because he's 30 years old, coming off an injury, and he either has elite speed or he doesn't. So you've got Chase Edmonds, you've got Zaquandre White, you've got Alec Ingold, and you have Sony Michel too.
I have Sony Michel. And one thing I want to add about Zaquandre White is because of the fact that he played a lot of linebacker his first couple of years of college, even in a pinch after he switched over to running back. He's somebody I think that could have some special teams value as well. So not only would he probably be the 4th running back to start with this year, you may see him active on game days over a few people ahead of him on the depth chart.
That could be the case. Yeah. Wide receiver, I went with 5 guys. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Cedric Wilson, our locks, obviously. And then Eric Ezukanma as the 4th receiver, and Lynn Bowden. Lynn Bowden has been impressive so far in OTAs, and as far as physical skills, makes a lot of sense. A lot of people that I've seen projecting Dolphins 53-man rosters have Trent Sherfield or Preston Williams or somebody else as the 6th receiver. But I went with just 5, and partially because the Dolphins have a lot of options here at fullback and tight end.
Yeah, no, I went with 5 as well. This is, I don't know if we can even call it dueling at this point. I went with Hill, Waddle, Wilson, Ezukanma, and everybody listening that's listened to us for a few shows or more knows, we joked about Albert Wilson being hurt a lot, but I don't think he's been hurt more than Preston Williams has. And Preston Williams has a boatload of talent, but I think that comes to a head with the talent that we have now and what we've seen of the work that Bowden's put in this offseason, the praise he's gotten from the coaching staff, and the things he's done at OTA so far. He's made a few diving catches to bail out all 3 quarterbacks. So as far as that goes, Preston Williams is out. Lynn Bowden's in.
Yeah, and so far, you and I have At quarterback, running back, wide receiver, we have all of the same, except at running back, I've got Raheem Mostert, and you have Zaquandre White. So that's the only difference here so far. And to recap, at running back, I've got Chase Edmonds, Raheem Mostert, Sony Michel, and Alec Ingold. Tight end, this is a position that we've been talking about. Yes, it seems to have 7 or 8 tight ends every single year. And right now on the roster, you've got 5 tight ends who are certainly rosterable anywhere in the NFL. And I've got 3 of them making the roster: Mike Gesicki, Durham Smythe, and Hunter Long. I don't see them giving up on Hunter Long at this point so far. I have him cutting both tight ends, Adam Shaheen and Ethan Carter. So I've only got him going with 3 tight ends. Did you do that too, or did you go with the 4th guy?
I'm just going to say ditto on this one. It's like,
we've agreed to a lot of this to this point, and we don't talk about this off the air. That's something our listeners have to know. We don't talk about this off the air, so we try to keep it live as far as that's concerned. So we've only got 1 disagreement so far, but this is where it starts to get interesting. And because the roster is a lot more talented than over the last couple of years, we may not have a lot of it or as many disagreements as we've had over the last couple of years. But I think we're going to start to see that change just a little bit here. So,
well, and where I'm surprised here is because, like, over the past few years, it's been because once you get past the first 20 guys, the dog fights were for, actually guys that were kind of floating around the edges to make a roster somewhere. And right now, we've already brought up cutting guys that could start around the NFL. For me, I've got Mostert on PUP, but like you said, he could easily end up being cut as well. And he could catch on somewhere and start effectively. The fact that we've got Shaheen, he could start somewhere. Ethan Carter, he could be a top backup somewhere. And
Myles Gaskin, Savon Ahmed. I mean,
Preston
these are guys
Williams,
who've been playing. If you take a look at the amount of snaps these guys have played the last 2 years, they're definitely going to catch on somewhere. And I've said before that if I were a GM, I would never own a 7th round pick because I would always be trading them for players that are about to get cut. I mean, if you're, a GM for another team and you need a good 2nd or 3rd running back, you're not going to trade a 7th rounder for Myles Gaskin. Somebody who is good in the passing game and has had, almost 2,000 total yards over the last 2 years and, 17 touchdowns. I mean, you'd be crazy not to.
No, and that's why I've got, if Mostert doesn't start on PUP for me, if Mostert makes my roster, I would have taken Sony Michel off of the other 3. Like I do think we're going to see some wheeling and dealing as August rolls around to move some of these guys like a Shaheen, like a Preston Williams, if he can, for a 7th rounder, like one of the running backs.
I'm with you on that. And White, I think if he doesn't make the final roster, just like a lot of these undrafted free agents, is a shoo-in for the practice squad with how many guys the NFL, with how many, players you're allowed to keep on an NFL roster this year. So offensive line, there are 6 locks that we had last week. Teron Armstead, Conor Williams, Michael Dieter, Robert Hunt, Austin Jackson, Liam Eichenberg. You had Robert Jones as a lock. I was very close to getting to that point too. So, and I definitely had him on my roster as well. So we've got those 7 guys firmly in place. After that, there's a debate about, do you keep 8 offensive linemen? Do you keep 9? Do you keep 10? So after our top 7 guys, who else did you keep?
So obviously I kept Robert Jones and I kept 9 total. I kept Larnell Coleman and I kept Kellan Desh. and said farewell to Solomon Kinley, which hurt me a little bit.
Wow. I thought Kinley was somebody I'd have to fight you about. So that's he's not a good fit in this scheme. But he does look like he's in better shape. And I think in a power type of scheme, he's gonna get a chance somewhere else. I also kept as my eighth guy Kellan Desh. And when you look at what the Dolphins offered him, I mean, when you give somebody $140,000 in guaranteed money as an undrafted free agent, absolutely, he's somebody that you think highly of. And in addition to that, kept another undrafted free agent, and that's Blaise Andres from Minnesota. And he's somebody too that not only has played left tackle and right tackle, he's also played left guard and right guard too. And in terms of guaranteed money, Dolphins also gave him almost $60,000 too. So it showed the commitment that they were making toward him. So the versatility and the guaranteed money. And I'm really surprised he wasn't drafted as somebody who's at 6'6", 310 pounds, ran a 5'1", good athlete, not the most powerful guy, but somebody who's really versatile as well. So,
and I think you just hit the nail on the head, and that's part of why Kinley goes out the door for me, unfortunately, is if you don't, Kinley basically needs to win a starting job or he's gone.
Yep.
It's keeping 9 linemen, having 5 starters. You need the folks behind them to be versatile, be able to play multiple positions, and playing left guard or right guard isn't it. Know, and that's where almost everybody else along there can play multiple positions. And if you play only one, I hate to sound elitist with this, but if you can only play one, it better be center or it better be tackle, because it's a lot easier to kick a tackle in a guard than it is to kick guard out to tackle. If that makes any kind of sense to our listeners. Even some of our starters have positional flexibility.
And if you're purely a guard, you can't miss as often as Solomon Kinley does. And when you take a look at that, staple toss play or stretch run that Mike McDaniel did often at San Francisco, I mean, how does Kinley get out there? How does he have the maneuverability and the athleticism to get out there? I just don't think he does.
Well, and that's where I hope the new in shape Kinley is able to do some of those things that we wish to see. We'd love to see from him, and we know McDaniels would love to see, because if the reports of him being in shape now are true, that could be interesting.
Yeah, he could certainly he definitely has a chance to make the roster.
Well,
hopefully the people that are photographing.
At center, one of the guard spots is going to be wide open.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot. If you're talking about as far as depth, probably the thinnest position on the team, Paul, it's probably guard. It's probably backup guard right now. I mean, and you look at some guys out there in the market like Ode Abushi, who hasn't been signed yet. If you're looking for somebody serviceable, maybe he makes some sense. But Kinley certainly has an opportunity. But if he doesn't make the roster, he's probably going to get more of a chance with a team, probably like the Patriots, that employ more of like a man running type of scheme. Yeah, it's somebody who's a mauler. Yeah, I mean,
and here's the thing I'd say though too, and don't get me wrong, Mike McDaniels does have the right, as you pointed out before, to I don't care who he puts on the offensive line. If he tells me that they can run his scheme, I'm going to believe him until he shows me they can't, or they show me they can't. I will say, based on going back and watching tape of last year, I'm not enamored with the thought of Austin Jackson starting a guard. There were way too many times where I watched him athletically watch a play, give up on a play, just kind of go, oops, or look lost and clueless out there, which, yes, McDaniel's staff is full of teachers, but there were certain heart and effort moments, because like I'll take a guy that when he doesn't understand what he's doing, at least does something. Like,
So
I hate to
let
put
me
it.
ask you this. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And let me ask you this, if we can park there. I know we're talking about the 53-man roster, but there's been little to no talk about Robert Hunt kicking out to right tackle. That's always an option, but that's not being talked about yet. So let's say that things stay the status quo. Teron Armstead at left tackle, Conor Williams at center, Robert Hunt at right guard. Who do you see starting week 1 for the Dolphins at left guard and right tackle, if you had to guess right now?
At right tackle, I'd say Eichenberg. With it, believe it or not, an outside shot to Coleman if he's filled out his frame, which I haven't seen or heard yet. At guard, probably Austin Jackson, although I'd prefer Robert Jones.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's questionable right now. If I were to guess, I would say Liam Eichenberg at left guard and Austin Jackson at right tackle, because Jackson still has the athleticism. He has played right tackle in the past. And it allows you also to have Michael Dieter backing up all 3 interior line positions. But my preference is always to have, and your preference too, to have Robert Hunt playing the right tackle and Teron Armstead at left tackle, and then taking the rest of those resources and putting those in the middle of the offensive line along with Conor Williams. That's what we've always talked about. But
and I know we're not talking about a Mahler scheme, but at the same time, I would love Kinley Moore playing between Conor Williams and Robert Hunt at right guard, because the best Kinley was when he was competing with Robert Hunt for who could beat the living hell out of somebody the most and the quickest. The best, and having Conor Williams nasty ass next to him. Let's go.
No, I can't.
You can know all you want, but I'm telling you, that would be
the best.
A fun
Solomon
line to
Kinley. Watch. Solomon Kinley was the best when Ponderosa was still around. I mean, can't do it.
He's too young for Pondy, man.
Not from what I saw at Georgia when he was 19, and God, just massive. Anyway, I think Kinley gets cut. You have him getting cut. I have him getting cut. Let's move on to the defensive side of the ball. And on the front 7, we always talk about how it's a little bit blurred between the lines. So we're going to start out with the edge position here. I've got Emmanuel Ogbah, Jalen Phillips, Melvin Ingram. Andrew Van Ginkel is iffy between edge and linebacker, but I've got him as an edge guy. And Cameron Good as well, the Dolphins' 7th round pick. I don't know whether to put him as an edge or an off-ball linebacker, but I'm going to put him as an edge guy. Who do you have?
I've got those 5, and I threw Duke Riley in as an edge guy as well.
All right. See, I've got him as an off-ball linebacker. So let's piggyback that with the linebackers. So I've got at linebacker, Jerome Baker, Landon Roberts, Duke Riley, and Channing Tindall, as well as obviously Good, who's also an edge guy.
I've got Baker, Tindall, Roberts, and Egwavon. I've got Egwavon making the roster. You can't get the last touchdown of the season and not make my roster here.
You know what? I stand corrected. I've got Egwavon too. This is where it gets confusing a little bit, but and Egwavon as well is somebody who I think has the versatility not only to play special teams, but he can play middle linebacker. He can play outside linebacker as well in this type of scheme that Boyer implements. I mean, because after Brennan Scarlett went down, those reps on special teams and on the outside had to be replicated. Egwavon helped out with that, and I think he really does the same this year too. So, interior defensive line here: Christian Wilkins, Raekwon Davis, Zach Sealer, Adam Butler. I did have Butler making the team, even though the Dolphins could cut him and save $4.1 million. But in a season like this, where it's so important over the next year or two to be really good on defense, Butler did a lot of damage last year. as a pass rusher in the fourth quarter. So I think he stays on the team.
I have Raekwon Davis, Christian Wilkins, Zach Sealer, and I've got Butler. I really thought we were gonna have more differences on this side of the ball.
No, we don't. But we're getting to defensive back. So we've got two differences so far, and we're getting to defensive back. Obviously, special teams. Let's just get this out of the way. Sanders, Morstead, Ferguson.
Look, don't take away my ability to say Turd Ferguson here. Damn it. I was waiting for you to go long snapper. I'm gonna go Turd Ferguson.
All right, whatever. All right, so we've got two differences. I've got Raheem Mostert and Blaise Andres, and you've got Zaquandre White and Larnell Coleman. This is a compliment to how hard it is to have differences in the 53-man roster.
Saying that the GM owes the fans an apology. Come on.
Defensive back.
All right.
So
you want to just say
some locks, obviously.
Should we say it at the same time? Because we might even have
no. I think we're gonna have some differences here. So cornerback. Xavier Howard, Byron Jones, Nick Needham, Noah Igbenogany, and Keon Crossan. Those are the five guys we certainly have. How about after that?
Cater Kohu and Trill Williams.
I have Cater Kohu as well. The Dolphins gave him $130,000 guaranteed money. He's a good athlete. They obviously think highly of him. I mean, look, they gave.
You don't have to sell him to me. I put him on my roster.
I know. So they gave Robert Jones last year $130,000 guaranteed money as an undrafted free agent. They gave Kellan Desh $140,000 as an undrafted free agent. They also gave Preston Williams a lot as well. But Kohu, they gave $130,000. So they think highly of him, and they were close to drafting him. But Paul, we do have a difference here. You've got Trill Williams. I think Trill Williams' time has come to an end. And I've got Javaris Davis overcoming the odds and making the team over Trill Williams.
That was the guy I had battling Cater Kohu. So I can't even argue that one. Jesus Christ.
We've never been more on the same page with.
On the Fin Side listeners, I'm going to apologize to you right now because Kat and I just can't even disagree on crap tonight. Like that's how good of a job like Chris Greer has done here.
At safety, Javon Holland, Brandon Jones, Eric Rowe.
We both got four of them. We know, and you've got McKinley on your list. So do I.
Do you have Clayton Fedulum?
No.
Oh, I've got Clayton Fedulum. So.
Oh, because the stupid. Oh, you bastard. Maybe we will fight.
The only reason I don't want him on there. I want nothing to do with the guy, but they readjusted his contract to give him $1 million guaranteed this year, and he's been a staple on special teams here over the last couple of years. So it's not about what I think; it's about what I think is going to happen. And you've got Veron McKinley. I've got Veron McKinley too. So
I know.
No. I tell you what, Paul, I think you're one short. So you get a free pass here.
Ooh.
And you can pick one more player. Because I know what happened here is that you had Raheem Mostert on your 53-man roster. And then you put him on PUP at the last second.
I don't know. I must have added wrong. Ooh. I get a free player. Ooh.
I can barely count from 1 to 10, but counting from 1 to 53, I mean, like I could do that half drunk in my sleep.
I'm going to add another DB because you just can't get enough of them in this offense or defense. And Javaris Davis, come on down. It still ain't Fedulum.
I was hoping you were going to take somebody else other than him, but anyway. So we agree on 50 of the 53 players on this roster. We have three differences. I have Raheem Mostert, offensive tackle, undrafted free agent, Blaise Andres and Clayton Fedulum. You've got Zaquandre White, Larnell Coleman, the offensive tackle, and Trill Williams at cornerback. Man, I tell you, we might do this show for another 20 years.
We're never going to be
And
this close.
we will never be this close. We will never get 50 out of 53. So this was eye-opening for me.
So interesting question though in the chat. If Skylar Thompson balls out in the preseason, would you consider, and I'm paraphrasing and rephrasing the question slightly because you can't cut Teddy at this point, but would you consider trading Teddy Bridgewater if Skylar Thompson balls out in the preseason?
For what?
Make it up.
Because
the trade part I threw in because you can't cut.
Yeah, I mean, if that scenario were to happen, it would have to be because some other team had a quarterback go down with injury. That would be the only other scenario. Because
or just doesn't have a quarterback that functions at this point.
Well, but there are a limited amount of those guys. Like the Seahawks and the Panthers are the only two teams.
If Kenny Pickett shows up and plays like Kenny Pickett, Steelers, I wouldn't trade him to the Jets. I think they're going to have to give Zach Wilson a couple of years, even though it's going to hurt.
Yeah, but let's stay with the Steelers, though. I mean, two questions exist there. Is that as far as Mitchell, let's say Mitch Trubisky. I mean, it's Mitch Trubisky, and Kenny Pickett isn't ready. Like, what are the Steelers going to offer the Dolphins that makes any sense? Are you really after this going to trade Teddy Bridgewater for a, I don't know, 4th round pick? That wouldn't make any sense. So what I'm saying is that if a team that is ready for the Super Bowl, let's say, for example, the Browns, that if they have a Teddy Bridgewater a quarterback and there's something, Deshaun Watson gets suspended for the season, they're not happy with Jacoby Brissett, and they try to fling the Dolphins a 2nd or 3rd round pick for Teddy Bridgewater, then it would make sense. But otherwise, nothing would.
Oh, the Bears are maybe. The Bears no.
Yeah.
Seattle might.
But are you going to give the Dolphins a 2nd or 3rd round pick for Teddy Bridgewater over Drew Lock and Geno Smith? I mean, you're just throwing another problem onto the table as far as I'm concerned. It's a good question. It really is a good question.
And honestly, when you say it out loud, if I were a Steelers fan or a Seahawks fan, and you told me that you called the Dolphins, asked about Teddy Bridgewater because Skylar Thompson balled out in the preseason, and you tried to stand your ground using the words, "We've got Drew Lock and Geno Smith, so we're not going to go too high on the bidding here," and refuse to part with a 3rd rounder for him, I think the Seahawks fans might riot.
What would the Seahawks have to gain, though? I mean,
a quarterback.
Yeah, but for what reason, though? I mean, this is a completely lost season. Winning what? They're not going to win if you trade. It's the
NFC, dude. The wild card is the most achievable thing in the world in the NFC.
The Seahawks have 0 chance to win 5 games. 0 chance with Teddy Bridgewater or without Teddy Bridgewater. Like,
with Teddy Bridgewater, the Seahawks would win 7 or 8 games, which might get you a wild card in the NFC this year.
There is nothing that is going to get the Seahawks.
I'm not even saying winning record. I'm just saying, like,
that's how bad they are.
Teddy just needs to drop back and loft it over the top to DK. That's like that alone.
Drew Lock could do the same thing.
No, he can't.
Yes, he can. Better.
No, he can't.
At least there's
he had
upside.
The tools in Denver and couldn't do it.
At least there's upside with Drew Lock. And I'm not saying that comparing him heads up to Teddy Bridgewater. I would rather have Teddy Bridgewater as the backup quarterback of the Dolphins. That's the point. And the Dolphins paid him 1 year, $6.5 million. No other team is going to pay Teddy Bridgewater $6.5 million and give a 2nd or 3rd round pick. It's not going to happen.
But you know what? If they do, I would. If the Seahawks are as bad as you like, I like a 3rd round pick even better from them, because that's almost a 2nd round pick.
I don't think I would in a season like this, because if
Skylar Thompson balls out.
he'd really have to ball out and would have to show that he's also mentally capable of handling the NFL game as a late 7th round rookie. And I
Jesus
didn't see
Christ.
enough of that at Kansas State. But
just thinking out loud here though too. Seahawks, like I need to look at the depth charts because the Seahawks, the Steelers, the Panthers, that's a whole lot of hot garbage quarterbacks across those 3 rosters right now.
it is, but
there's no
the
but.
Steelers drafted a quarterback in the 1st round. They're going to throw him into the fire and start him just like the Bears did with Justin Fields last year. Just like every 4 out of the 5 teams that drafted quarterbacks in the 1st round. So no, the short answer is don't hold your breath on that. Teddy Bridgewater, I actually like the signing after the Dolphins actually built a really well-rounded football team this year.
So perfect, Hugh. I'm just going to say, would you, for 3rd round or higher? I would.
2nd rounder, I would say. I mean, because otherwise it wouldn't make any sense. It wouldn't make any sense. I mean,
Seahawks 2nd rounder would almost be a 1st rounder. That'd be great.
Like it doesn't make any sense to sign Teddy Bridgewater to $6.5 million fully guaranteed, and then turn around and say, yeah, but I'd flip him for like a 5th rounder or something like that.
Oh no, 5th rounder, hell no. 4th rounder, nope.
All right, 4th rounder, no. 3rd rounder seems to be our breaking point here. Okay. 2nd rounder, I would do. 3rd rounder, you would do. That's the end of it.
So good question, perfect Q. Good.
It was a really good question. What else? That was the longest debate we've had in a long time.
At Pompous, we did read the Westhoff thing. We actually talked about it at the top of the show. Mike
Westhoff looks like he's been smoking Camel cigarettes for the last 15 years. Anyway,
Mike Westhoff, like, just go watch Deadpool. Watch the debate about it when he first takes his mask off in front of his buddy. That's Mike Westhoff. But
I don't even know what that means. But that sounds funny.
You would love it. There's a part about avocados and other avocados.
Is that a superhero movie?
It's like a super anti-hero movie. You would actually probably like that one, even if you don't like superhero movies.
Dude, I've watched so little anything. I'm just in the way when it comes to social references.
You need to watch.
Anyway,
you need to watch at least the first Deadpool. Oh yeah, you got Giants. Grandy, you're right.
Well, thank you for everyone for joining us here tonight. We really had a good time with this. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, all of our social media outlets, as well as finfanatic.com and the Fansided Network. I'm Brian Cat NFL on Twitter. Paul is fanatic_pick. And if it's not on the right side and it's not